Let us begin not with an answer, but with a question most fear to ask. What if everything you're doing, everything you built your life around is quietly hollow? Do not rush to dismiss it. Let the question take root. Let it echo. Picture your mornings, the ritual of rising, the mechanical sequence of tasks, the clocked-in identity you wear like armor. You move through your days with silent obedience, enduring fatigue like it's a badge of honor, clutching the whispered promise that one day someday, this will all make sense, that one day when you finally retire, you will awaken to life. But what if that one day is the grandest illusion of all? What if retirement, the golden oasis on the horizon, is not salvation, but a mirage carefully constructed to keep the psyche asleep? In truth, the idea of retirement may not be a reward, but a sedative, a carrot hung before the soul to justify a lifetime of postponement, a life deferred, a vitality numbed. And when that day finally arrives, if it does will you still know how to live, or will the muscles of joy, spontaneity, and selfhood have long since atrophied beneath layers of routine submission and socially endorsed self-abandonment? Do not mistake this message as criticism. I am not here to insult your labor, nor mock your endurance. I am here to awaken something, to lift the veil on a deception so embedded in our modern mythology that it parades as virtue. Carl Jung once said, "People will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul." And perhaps nowhere is this more true than in the cult of retirement, where the soul is traded for security, and life is mortgaged for a future that may never come. The real danger does not dwell in darkness, it hides in daylight, in the normal, in what society praises as success. Even as it quietly drains your essence, the deception is not dramatic, it is banal. It lives in habits, in schedules, in unspoken contracts that say you must suffer now to earn your right to live later. But what if you stopped waiting? What if you stopped asking for permission to be alive? This article is not just a critique of the system. It is an invitation, a call to reclaim your time, your breath, your presence now, not someday. For the self does not dwell in retirement plans. It dwells in the present moment, the only place where life, real life, ever begins. You were conditioned, not consciously, but with quiet repetition to defer your life, to store away your vitality like coins in a jar, in exchange for the promise of a few gilded years at the end. Work now, enjoy later, a mantra so familiar it hardly raises suspicion. It sounds rational, noble even. But hidden within it is a tragic omission. No one guarantees that later will arrive. There are no assurances that your body, your spirit, your clarity of mind will still be intact when that long awaited freedom comes. And while you wait, what do you give away? What pieces of your soul are you bargaining in the name of future rest? What moments have you exiled? What passions have you silenced? All in service of an abstract reward you're not even certain you receive. Is it not peculiar? Perhaps even perverse, that the one moment you are permitted to truly live is when your fire has already dimmed, when your knees ache, your sleep is fragmented, and your joy is diluted by prescriptions and limitations. This is not liberation, it is irony. And here lies the bitter truth. You are the one holding the key to your own cage. Since childhood, you been handed a blueprint, study. Comply, buy, store, survive. Then if you obeyed perfectly, the gates of retirement would open and meaning would be restored. But look around. How many of the retired are truly alive in the way they once dreamed? How many are dancing with wonder, chasing visions they had buried? How many have reached this end with full hearts, unburdened by regret, untouched by the quiet whisper of, I missed my life? And how many are simply enduring, waiting not for freedom but for finality? Carl Jung once warned, a man who has not passed through the inferno of his passions has never overcome them. Likewise, a life that has never been fully lived in the now cannot be resurrected by the empty promise of someday. The real tragedy is not that we grow old, it's that we postpone aliveness until it's too late to remember how. Listen, not with your intellect, but with the part of you that remembers how to feel. This is not a condemnation of work or of structure. It is an invitation to descend beneath the surface and ask the question most avoid. Why? Why do you live the way you do for Whom have you delayed your joy? What inner voice taught you that it is noble to suffer now in order to savor later? And who promised that your senses, your curiosity, your vitality would still be intact when later finally arrives? This is not a complaint. It is a spiritual alarm. What is truly at stake is not just your distant future. It is your vanishing present. And this no one teaches you to see. No one tells you that the system you've built your life around may no longer be worthy of your obedience. It was forged in a different era with different bodies, different minds, and different expectation. Yet you follow it still as though time has not moved on. Look closely. Observe how most people move like somnambulists enacting a collective ritual of survival masquerading as purpose. One step, then another. A choreography of slow spiritual erosion rehearsed for decades. And you who feel the misalignment you silence it. You dim that intuitive knowing because it threatens the scaffolding of your entire identity. To question it would require you to change to awaken, and that perhaps is more terrifying than a lifetime of quiet de-inspiration. Because to take ownership of your time is to take ownership of your soul. It is to no longer hide behind schedules, sacrifices, or social approval. And that is not only uncomfortable, it is revolutionary. Is it not strange that the promise of freedom is dangled like a prize at the end of exhaustion? The joy is postponed until your joints ache and your dreams have faded into habit. How often have you whispered to yourself, one day when I retire, I'll finally live. And what if that day never comes? Or worse, what if it does? But you no longer know what it means to be alive. Carl Jung once wrote, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. But you cannot become anything while you are sleepwalking through someone else's timeline." Awakening requires that you stop waiting. Life does not wait. It does not pause for your pension plan. Nor does it grant extensions for the soul deferred. It moves relentless and indifferent spending your time. Even as you try to save it, the calendar does not pity your sacrifices. The years you hoard for later are already being spent by your body, by your breath, by your unlived dreams. This is not some glossy motivational chant. It is a symbolic autopsy of the cultural lie we quote embalmed in the word retirement. For What is retirement truly if not the dot epitaph of an unlived life? A mirage dot offered as reward when in truth it often dot arrives as a quiet grave, a place where dot your energy is gone, and yet your desire dot to begin again still flickers tragically dot late. And here lies the most unsettling dot truth. No one is holding a gun to your dot head. No one is chaining you to the dot blueprint. You rise each morning and dot choose it. You follow the script. You dot silence that small voice that once cried dot out from your depths. There must be dot more than dot this. That voice, raw, real, once dot sacred, has not died. It has been buried dot under years of obedience, muffled by the dot rituals of routine, drowned in the noise dot of what you were told was dot security. But it still whispers beneath dot the surface of your days. What if you dot stopped waiting? What if you placed dot value not in the distant someday, but in dot the fragile now? What if joy was not a dot retirement gift but a radical act of dot reclaiming this hour, this breath, this dot fleeting pulse of aliveness? Ah, but to dot do that you would have to disobey. You dot would have to tear the page from the dot social script, throw away the calendar dot marked by someone else's expectations dot, and begin to live according to the quiet dot laws of your own soul. And then silence, the kind of silence that unnerves, the dot silence that settles in when illusion dot falls away, and the raw truth stands dot unclouded. In that stillness, you begin dot to hear the one thing you've tried to dot drown out for decades, the heartbeat of dot your unlived life, the ache of time dot spent, the weight of days forgotten, the dot grief of waiting. This is not advice. It dot is not comfort. It is a mirror, and what dot you see reflected in it may not soothe dot you, but it may awaken you, and that is dot where freedom begins. Are you ready? Likely not. But let us proceed anyway. You've glimpsed the trap. This illusion dot of retirement as the grand golden finale dot of life. But now let us peer deeper into dot the cavern of the unconscious, into dot something even more disturbing. The way dot you quote V been conditioned not only to wait dot for retirement but to long for it as if dot it were redemption itself. As if all the dot years before it were but a prelude to a dot final act that makes the entire dot performance worthwhile. This is not mere dot habit. This is psychic programming dot emotional engineering on a mass scale. The collective has taught you that rest dot must be earned through suffering. That dot joy is a delayed transaction, not a dot birthright. And what is that if not a dot sophisticated form of slavery, one dot without visible chains where you clasp dot the shackles willingly and call it dot virtue? This is the psychological spell dot of our age. To wear exhaustion as a dot badge of honor, to glorify burnout as if dot it were evidence of nobility. When dot someone says, I haven't stopped all dot week, we applaud. But no one whispers dot the obvious truth that this is not dot strength. It is sickness. Since when did dot immolation become sacred? Since when did dot we confuse self-erasure with discipline? Look around you. How many souls are dot sleepwalking through their lives, repeating days like punishments, cycling dot through weeks like mechanical rituals? They rise with no inner fire, move dot through life with no vitality, return dot home only to anesthetize themselves in dot fr onto glowing screens. They are not dot living. They are surviving, waiting for a salvation called later, as if time had dot no end, as if life granted refunds. But dot it doesn't. And death never sends an dot invitation. It simply arrives. And here dot is the truth that stings most deeply. If dot you do not learn how to live now, you dot will not suddenly awaken to life when dot you retire. Life is not a switch flipped dot by a date on a calendar. It is a muscle. It is a discipline. And if you have spent decades deferring joy, outsourcing purpose, and obeying schedules not your own, what makes you believe you will know how to wield freedom once it SS handed to you? You won't. I assure you the psyche adapts. It adjusts to survival. It becomes fluent in postponement. And when freedom finally arrives, you will not meet it with celebration. You will meet it with panic. You will be rusted by inertia hollowed by obedience. Your days will be your own. Yet, you won't know what to do with them. And so, the unconscious will do what it always does when it loses its compass. It will seek new cages. You will busy yourself with the trivial. You will cling to meaningless routines. You will manufacture burdens and anxieties not because you desire them, but because you were never taught to self-govern. And that is the poisoned root of the whole design. No one ever taught you what it means to live. They only taught you how to comply. And let us be clear. Complying is not the same as living. To live truly is to choose to feel, to risk, and to fail. It is to dare the unknown. To fall out of step with the herd and walk through the wilderness of your own soul. Such living does not fit neatly inside the boxes of employment contracts or retirement schemes. It is wild, unpredictable, and yes, uncomfortable. But it is also real. Have you ever asked why so many fall into despair after retirement? Why vitality fades? Why time suddenly seems to accelerate toward the end? It is not simply age. It is because the structure that once propped up their identity has collapsed. Even if they hated the work it defined them, it gave them something to point to and say, I am this. Without it there is a void, and that void is not merely about lack of work. It is about lack of meaning. But meaning does not arise from schedules or salaries. True purpose is not assigned. It is discovered, and it emerges only when you dare to look within. When you confront yourself outside the systems that have shaped and used you. Most people never do. They remain pawns in a machine that extracts their time, their energy, their imagination, leaving behind only routines and regrets. So here is a deeper question. How many times have you asked yourself whether what you do actually makes sense? Not whether it productive, not whether it pays well but whether it awakens something in your soul. Does it make you feel alive? Not just busy. Are you building something that matters to your spirit, even if no one sees it? Even if no one claps? If you cannot answer yes. Then you are living on borrowed time. Someone else S blueprint. And retirement will not save you. It will only change the setting not the sensation. The same emptiness repackaged. And do you wish to know what S more unsettling? The system knows. It knows the cost of awakening, and it fears it because a whole human being. A person who lives from the self is dangerous. A fulfilled individual cannot be manipulated by fear. They do not consume blindly. They do not obey simply because they were told to. A person who lives in the now has no need to buy their dreams back from the future. They are already dreaming and doing. And so the world prefers you asleep. It prefers you docile, worn thin, hooked on hope, enchanted by a future that may never come. So what will you do with this knowledge? Will you return to the narrative, Bow to the myth of someday? Or will you plant your feet firmly in the present and whisper enough? Because you don't need to wait to begin. You don't need to be 65 to travel, to start anew, to love fiercely, to learn fearlessly, to create something sacred. Retirement is not a calendar event. It is a conscious state, and you can retire today from the illusions that bind you. But beware this kind of liberation comes at a cost. You will no longer fit in. You will make others uncomfortable. They will wonder who does this person think they are? Because breaking the narrative is an act of rebellion. But then ask yourself this. Would you rather suffer the silence of conformity, or the vibrant untamed roar of your truth? There is one question that cuts through all others. If you knew you wouldn't make it to 65, would you live differently today? And if your answer is yes, then you are already living the wrong story. Because you should not need guarantees to begin living your truth. Life does not bargain with certainties. It unfolds through the unpredictable rhythm of the present moment. And what you possess in truth is only now. Forget the illusion they call retirement. Begin to contemplate something far more dangerous and far more liberating. Freedom. But not the kind advertised by insurance brochures and gilded slogans. No, I speak of the radical inner freedom to be who you truly are, to awaken each day not as a servant of the clock, but as a sovereign of your own time. This kind of freedom cannot be granted by a pension or stamped onto a diploma. It is born the moment you dare to pause, look inward and declare, "This life is mine, and I will no longer wait." Because if you do not claim it, others will claim it for you, and they will not choose what is best for your soul. They will choose what benefits their machinery. So ask yourself, are you ready to release the script, or will you continue reciting the lines of a play you never wrote? Choose now, because the truth, as inconvenient as it is this: you may not be here later. Up until now, we have spoken of retirement as a cultural mirage, a golden promise dangled just far enough to keep you obedient. But beneath that machinery lies something more terrifying than any deadline: emptiness. That haunting space we flee where tasks fall silent and only your consciousness remains. This is what retirement unveils for many, time without structure. And what they meet in that silence is not serenity but vertigo. Because time without meaning is not a reward. It is a trap, a vast void that cannot be filled by a vacation or cured by a pension. It can only be healed by the slow, deliberate crafting of a life infused with purpose at every stage. Not just at the end. So here is the question that should echo through you like thunder. Who would you be without your work? Not what you would do but who you would become. Without titles. Without productivity. Without applause. For if your entire identity is stitched together by the role you perform, then you are not a person. You are a cog. And once that function is gone, what remains? What self survives? When the noise of duty fades, this is the secret terror no one dares name. Many do not know how to be with themselves. They cannot sit still without guilt, cannot feel joy without justification, because our culture has etched a poisonous equation into the psyche. You are only as valuable as you are useful. And when usefulness ceases when you are no longer producing or contributing or performing, Society dot renders you invisible, and invisibility dot when not chosen becomes exile. This is dot the root of so many retirement crises. It is not aging that destroys us. It is dot the psychic collapse that comes when we dot no longer feel needed, when we have no dot identity outside of being dot necessary. So do you understand now? Retirement is not rest. It is the moment dot when all the external noise stops, and dot you are finally left alone with the dot question. Who am I without all this? And dot here lies the brutal paradox. You have dot labored your entire life to reach a dot destination you are not prepared to dot inhabit. You have mastered the walk, but dot never learned how to stop. And when you dot do, you crumble. There is pain more dot suffocating than toil. Uselessness. That dot sense of being erased from the dot choreography of the world. And let me be dot clear, this has nothing to do with age. It has everything to do with having no dot inner life, beyond productivity. And so dot we must speak of something else too, emotional self-exploitation. That deep seated dot belief that your worth depends on your dot output. That movement equals value. That dot rest equals failure. This too is a dot prison. A beautiful modern prison dot adorned with mantras of hustle and dot drenched in quotes about success. But it dot is still bondage, and many arrive at dot retirement only to discover they never dot truly learned how to enjoy, not without dot earning it, not without guilt. And so dot the question is not how to prepare for dot retirement. The question is how to stop dot fearing a life without chains, because dot the real trial is not aging, it is dot liberation, and that begins with dot surrender. Surrender the roles you never dot chose. Surrender the goals you dot inherited. Surrender the voice that dot tells you rest is weakness, because if dot you do not, you will become one of those dot who retire and slowly disappear, sitting dot in front of a screen, flipping through dot memories, unable to build the present dot because you never practiced how. And dot here is the bitter irony. The moment dot someone dares to break away, to say, I dot will not wait to live. Society punishes dot them, labels them immature dot irresponsible, because nothing threatens dot the collective trance more than someone dot who awakens. A soul who finds joy now dot casts a blinding light on those still dot asleep. It disturbs the sleepers. It dot makes them remember that they too once dot had dreams, and that more than anything dot is the danger of freedom. You become a dot mirror, a reflection of the life others dot need themselves, and some will hate dot you for it, but others will dot remember. And that remembrance may be dot enough to break the spell. Do you feel dot the gravity of this? You are not waiting dot for money. You are not waiting for dot safety nor for structure. You are dot waiting because the world whispered dot again and again that this is what a good dot life looks like. You were never taught dot to inhabit the present without guilt. You are conditioned to believe that dot suffering is the sacred toll for dot fulfillment, and now you no longer know dot how to exist without suffering. But hear dot me. It is possible. Of course it is. The dot path does not begin with surface dot affirmations or polished motivation. It dot begins as all real transformation does dot in solitude, with a descent into your dot in near life. You must sit with the self. You must strip away the roles and dot whispers and stories not your own. You dot must ask, what do I love? What stirs my dot blood? What have I buried in the name of dot utility? And when you begin to dot resurrect those exiled parts of dot yourself, the playful, the curious, the dot wildly imperfect, you begin to remember dot what it means to live, not just a dot function. You permit yourself to breathe dot without apology, to make mistakes dot without self-punishment, to feel joy dot without transaction. That, my friend, is dot true retirement, not a date, not a dot pension, not a beachfront illusion of dot freedom. It is the moment you stop dot waiting, the moment you begin to live dot with presence, without asking for dot permission, and without shame. And then dot something heartbreaking happens. You dot begin to see the time you lost. The dot years surrendered to someone else, quote, S dot narrative. You will feel sorrow. You may dot feel rage. You will look back at the dot space where your real life might have dot grown and grieve what never had the dot chance to breathe. But you will also dot feel something else. You will feel dot awake, and that is worth more than any dot pension, any praise, any post-retirement dot promise. You do not have to retire to dot live. You must retire from the lie. And dot you can do that now without approval dot, without waiting for applause, without a dot system's decree. Because life, real life dot, does not negotiate. It does not linger dot in abstractions. It requires teeth dot soul, and the raw courage to meet dot yourself face to face. So I ask you, are dot you willing? Because if you are, then dot what lies ahead is not an ending. It is dot the birth of the self. It is the dot beginning of what Carl Jung called dot individuation, the reclamation of your dot inner authority. And if you are still dot here reading these words, something dot inside you is refusing to sleep, something ancient, something silenced dot, something sacred is rising. Most people dot turn away when the truth begins to dot scrape the ego. Most walk off the path dot when the mirror appears. But you stayed, and that means something in you is ready dot to wake up. Ready to remember that the dot perfect moment is a myth crafted by dot fear. There is only now this breath dot, this decision. This heartbeat where you dot choose not to live like you are dot immortal, because that is the cruelest dot deception of all. Living as if your days dot are infinite, as if your energy will dot never fade, as if your story will always dot have another chapter. You delay the dot conversation, the risk, the love, the dot dream, believing you will always have dot more time. But no. You are rusting while dot mapping future vacations. You are dot dissolving while waiting for permission dot to arrive. And this is not a call to dot burn it all down. It is a call to a dot silent revolution. The inner shift where dot your days become sacred again. The time dot start now. Inhabit your life. Dawn quote to dot count the hours. Feel them. Because this dot isn't quote to an argument against the system. It dot is an invitation to your conscience. Are dot you still handing over your life in neat dot little boxes, letting someone else dot assign your worth? Or are you finally dot ready to reclaim your hours as holy dot ground, and if you reach old age? And I dot pray you do. What story will you whisper dot to yourself in the silence? Will you dot feel peace or regret? Will you speak dot with pride or hide behind the lifeless dot phrase? I did what I had to do, that dot tragic tombstone of countless souls who dot never dared to ask, but who decided that dot for me. So here is the question that dot will burn through you if you let it. What if you don't need more time, you dot need more courage? Courage to dismantle dot the mold. Courage to stop asking to be dot free. Courage to take your life in your dot hands, not as a prison, but as a dot canvas. Paint it, break it, begin again, but whatever you do, do not wait. Not dot until retirement, not until they dot approve, not until your life has shrunk dot into a room full of old photographs, because the soul cannot be put on hold. it was never meant to wait. And if you silence it long enough, it stops speaking. And when that happens, you're not waiting anymore, Yunan. If something within this message stirred you, if even a single word mirrored your inner experience, I invite you to let your voice be heard in the comments. Have you encountered that soul whose presence feels like home, or are you still walking the sacred path back to yourself? Your story, however unfinished, may become the lantern in someone else's darkness, the very sign they didn't know they were searching for. And if someone close to you is silently struggling with the illusion that love must hurt, that self-abandonment is the price of connection, or that they are unworthy of peace, share this video with them. Help me reach the ones who need to remember real love does not demand that we shrink. True connection does not ask for sacrifice of the soul. And the most vital union we will ever form is the one with our own inner truth. Before you go, I invite you to subscribe and activate the notification bell. Here in this space, we journey beneath the surface of things, exploring the hidden architecture of the psyche, the whispers of the unconscious, and how every relationship is but a mirror reflecting our personal evolution. If there's a theme, a question, or a wound you would like us to explore in future videos, leave it below. This space breathes because of you. Your voice is not only welcome here, it is essential. Thank you for showing up not just to this video but to your inner work, to the sacred labor of remembering who you truly are. And always remember this: when the right person appears, your soul will know, not through fear, but through peace. But until that moment, let your most intimate relationship be the one you cultivate within. That is the foundation, that is the home, and from that wholeness, all things real are born.